What if I told you that not all dreams are meant to be ignored? Some dreams don't come from imagination. They come with a feeling, like something is trying to reach you. In ancient African understanding, dreams were never random. They were interpreted as signs, messages, warnings, hidden inside symbols. But here is what makes it even more strange. Some people believe certain dreams don't just reflect your mind, they reflect what is about to happen. So the real question is, how do you know when a dream is actually a warning and not just a dream? Dreams are not just random images the mind creates while you sleep. In many ways, they behave more like communication. Something trying to reach you through symbols, emotions, and moments that don't fully make sense until you stop and reflect on them later. It's not always clear, but it really feels empty. Some dreams carry emotional weight that stays with you long after waking up. You don't just remember what happened in them, you remember how they made you feel. That feeling can linger, almost like it's pointing towards something unresolved or something you're meant to notice. Other dreams feel heavier, almost as if they are carrying meaning beyond normal imagination. Not because they are supernatural in appearance, but because they feel significant in a way ordinary thoughts do not. They leave impressions that are hard to dismiss, even when you try to move on with your day. In many ancient cultures, dreams were treated with seriousness because of this exact reason. They were not brushed aside as random noise of the mind. Instead, they were observed, discussed, and sometimes even used as part of decision-making processes in communities where meaning was believed to exist in every experience. So the question becomes even more direct. If dreams can feel this intentional, this emotionally charged, and this persistent, how do you tell the difference between something your mind is creating and something that is trying to communicate with you? The first signs that a dream may carry deeper meaning is repetition. Not just remembering a dream once, but experiencing it again and again, almost as if it refuses to leave you alone. The same setting appears, the same symbols return, the same emotional feeling follows you each time, no matter how many days pass between the dreams. At first, it can feel like coincidence, the mind replaying familiar patterns while you sleep. But repetition changes the experience. It stops feeling random and starts feeling intentional, as if something is trying to get your attention but hasn't fully succeeded yet. You might notice small details staying consistent, even when other parts of your life change. The environment might shift slightly, but the core message remains the same. The feeling it leaves behind does not fade, even after you wake up and try to move on. This is where the idea of repetition becomes important, because in many interpretations, when the same dream returns without change, it is seen as a message that has not yet been understood or acknowledged. Not louder each time, but persistent, as if waiting for recognition. The repetition itself becomes the signal, not because the dream is repeating for no reason, but because something within it is unresolved, continuing to surface until it is finally noticed. A second sign appears when a dream feels too real to dismiss. Not just vivid in detail, but emotionally intense in a way that stays with you after waking up. It can feel like you were actually there, experiencing every moment as if it was happening in real time. When you wake up, the first thing you notice is not the images themselves, but the emotional impact. A sense of fear, sadness, urgency, or confusion that doesn't immediately disappear. It lingers in your body, almost like the dream left something behind that your waking mind has to carry for a while. This is what makes it different from ordinary dreaming. Most dreams fade quickly as soon as you open your eyes, but emotional shock dreams behave differently. They stay present, sometimes even influencing your mood for hours or the entire day. And this is where the key point becomes important. It's not just about what happened in the dream, it's about what remains after it ends. The emotional residue becomes the real signal, the part that continues to affect you even when the dream itself is gone. In many interpretations, that lingering feeling is what makes the experience significant. Not because the dream is meant to predict something, but because it is powerful enough to leave an emotional imprint that cannot be easily ignored. A third sign appears when a dream happens shortly before something important in your life begins to shift. It doesn't announce itself as meaningful at first. It simply arrives, like any other dream, and fades into the background of your morning thoughts. But then, shortly after, something begins to unfold in real life that feels strangely connected to it. It might be a decision you didn't expect to face yet, a conversation that turns in a direction you weren't prepared for, or a moment of conflict or change that forces movement where there was previously stability. The timing feels too close to ignore, even if you try to separate the two experiences. What makes this sign stand out is not certainty, but sequence. The dream comes first, and the real-life event follows. And even if you cannot fully explain the connection, the memory of the dream returns when the moment arrives, almost like a quiet reminder you didn't recognize earlier. Ancient traditions believed this was guidance, not in a direct or literal way, but in the sense that dreams could reflect upcoming emotional or situational shifts before they fully appeared in waking life. They were seen as symbolic previews rather than fixed predictions. And because of that belief, these dreams were not ignored easily. They were remembered, reflected on, and sometimes only fully understood after the event had already taken place. Across ancient African teachings, dreams were seen as messages carried through symbolic language. Not direct statements, but layered meanings that required attention, reflection, and understanding over time. They were not treated as symbol fragments of sleep, but as experiences that could hold guidance, warning, or insight, depending on how they were interpreted within a person's life and situation. Because of this, people learned to look beyond the surface of a dream. A single image could carry multiple meanings. A moment in sleep could connect to real events in unexpected ways. And what mattered most was not always the dream itself, but how it resonated with what followed in waking life. And once you understand that perspective, the next signs begin to feel even more noticeable. A fourth sign appears in the language of symbols. In these dreams, nothing is explained directly. Instead, everything is shown through images that feel familiar but carry deeper emotional weight when you wake up and try to make sense of them. Water often appears in shifting forms, sometimes calm, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes unclear. It leaves behind a feeling connected to emotion, change, or movement in life that is not fully under control. You don't just see water, you feel its presence, as if something is flowing beyond what you can hold still. Fire appears differently. It doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it lights up the entire dream with intensity. It can feel urgent, powerful, or unsettling. After waking, it leaves behind a sense of transformation or warning, like something is shifting too quickly to ignore. Animals appear in a more instinctive way. A silent presence watching, a sudden encounter, a repeated image that feels personal even when it shouldn't. These moments often carry a feeling tied to behavior, instinct, or something within yourself that is being reflected back in symbolic form. Nothing is explained directly in these dreams, but the symbols stay with you, and over time, they begin to feel less like random images and more like emotional signals that continue to speak long after the dream has ended. The final sign is often the most powerful and the hardest to ignore. It is not about what happens inside the dream itself, but what refuses to leave you after you wake up. The dream stays in your mind, not as a clear memory, but as a presence that keeps returning throughout the day. You go about your routine, but it keeps surfacing in quiet moments. While thinking, while resting, while doing something completely unrelated, fragments of it come back without warning. Not the full dream, but pieces of it that carry the same emotional weight as when you first experienced it. What makes this different is the strength of the emotional imprint. It feels as if something has been pressed into your awareness, something that resists fading the way most dreams naturally do. Even when you try to focus on other things, it remains in the background, subtle, but persistent. And this is where it becomes difficult to dismiss, because most dreams dissolve quickly after waking, but this one stays. It follows you through the day, shaping your thoughts in small ways you don't always notice at first. You don't just remember it, you carry it. Across ancient African understanding, dreams were often seen as a form of communication. Not a literal language spoken in words, but a symbolic one expressed through images, emotions, and situations that needed interpretation rather than immediate explanation. They were treated as signals that required attention, not random mental noise. A dream was something to be observed carefully, because meaning was believed to exist beneath the surface of what was shown. Interpretation itself was considered part of wisdom systems. Elders, guides, or knowledge holders would reflect on dreams within the context of a person's life, their community, and the timing of events around them. It was not about guessing, but about understanding patterns and connections. In that way, dreams were not separate from reality. They were part of how reality was understood. In modern life, the same patterns still appear, even if people describe them differently. It is that quiet moment when something inside you reacts before you can explain why. A feeling that shows up during a decision, a conversation, or a turning point, even when everything on the surface seems perfectly fine. Intuition often works like that. It doesn't always come with reasons or evidence. It simply presents itself as a sense of direction or hesitation. And in many cases, people only recognize its importance after the moment has already passed. There are also times when those internal signals are ignored, not because they are loud, but because they are easy to dismiss. Life continues, decisions are made, and only later do people look back and notice how strongly they felt something before it happened. Emotional awareness becomes important in this space. Paying attention to how something feels, not just how it looks, can change how decisions are made. Because feelings often carry information that logic doesn't immediately capture. And when you connect this back to the idea of dreams, the line becomes thinner than expected. What once seemed like separate experiences, sleep and waking life, start to feel like different ways of processing the same internal signals. Maybe dreams were never meant to confuse us, but to communicate with us in a language we've slowly forgotten how to read. A language made of symbols, emotions, and fragments that don't always make sense in the moment, but begin to reveal meaning when life starts unfolding around them. Maybe they were meant to prepare us, not by showing exact outcomes, but by sharpening awareness, by making us feel something before we understand it, by leaving impressions that return at the exact moments we need to notice something important in waking life. Because when you look at it closely, dreams don't always disappear when you wake up. Sometimes they echo. Sometimes they repeat. Sometimes they stay in your mind longer than expected, almost as if they are waiting for something in real life to catch up to them. And the question is not whether every dream carries a message in the same way. The question is whether we are paying enough attention to the ones that feel different, the ones that linger, the ones that return, the ones that refuse to fade quietly into memory. The question is, are you paying attention?